When applying brakes or going around a sharp corner, the front end of the car made a loud clunking noise. Here's an example of worn-out bushings. This powerful Corda impact gun from Harbor Freight cost $70. It was very useful. Use a 5mm Allen wrench to loosen the bolt that holds the wheel hub. Your thumb prevents the outer bearing from falling out. The 5mm Allen wrench will remove the 3 bolts holding the dust shield. These are the plates used for compressing the spring. This is a bottom plate, and this is a top plate. Make sure to put them in correctly. This is the shaft used to squeeze the plates together and compress the spring, but it won't fit through this hole. A burr grinder can enlarge the hole. Oops, the air filter is in the way. Let's try again with the air filter removed. To add safety, I secured the spring with a towing strap. With the spring compressed, I'll remove the shock and eventually the spindle from the lower control arm. Remove the lower outer bolt first. Then remove the upper bolt. This shaft protruding from the top of the shock is under a lot of tension. I pulled the shock out by going under the fender well and pulling down on the shock and moving it outboard. Now that the shaft is swung upward, you can gain access to this inboard lower bolt. The ball joint separating tool breaks the spindle away from the upper control arm. Disconnecting the lower control arm from the spindle. Out goes the spindle, or knuckle, whatever you want to call it. Removing the guide rod mount. This is the bolt holding the lower control arm bushing to the frame. And this bolt makes the connection between the lower control rod and the guide rod. Lower control arm in my right hand and guide rod in my left. Use the burr grinder to remove the flare from this shaft. Out goes the bushing from the lower control arm. In goes the new bushings with the help of a 12-ton press and some slippery soap. Before removing this old guide rod mount, I counted the exposed threads, so when I put the new one in, the same number of threads are showing, thereby reducing the amount of alignment work. Fresh paint. Here's how I removed the ball joint from the spindle. First, I secured these pieces so they wouldn't ricochet across the yard after I hit them. This was actually my fourth whack. Using this tool to press in the new ball joint is nearly effortless as compared to the C-clamp method. Removing the upper control arm. Amongst all the parts replaced, the upper control arms were in the worst condition. What looks like a shiny piece of metal is actually a mirror I used to help me see the exit hole so I could line up the bolt that passes through the upper fender well. Connecting the guide rod and the lower control arm. Those are new bushings where the guide rod and the lower control arm meet. I rotate the special washer into the position that I found it in. This will reduce the amount of work at the alignment shop. Installing the spindle. I couldn't fit a torque wrench onto this ball joint nut, so I torqued it to what felt like 60 foot-pounds. Tighten this bolt enough to cause the rubber washer to bulge. The spring purchase held in place with 3 bolts. Like every other fitting, I coat the threads with thread locker. I've already decompressed the spring. Now I'm removing the spring plates. They don't come out easily. Installing the dust shield. Attaching new disc brakes to the wheel hub. Removing the holding pins. This footage is a little misleading. You actually have to use a really strong center punch and pound pretty hard. Removing the retainer clip, the outboard brake pad, and the inboard brake pad. When cleaning the brake calipers, be sure to use breathing protection because the brake dust is toxic. Apply brake grease to the back sides of the brake pads and the insides of the brake calipers. brake discs are 13 millimeters thick, so I'm going to expand these pads to about 15 millimeters to make it easy to install the brake disc. Tighten this bolt so there's no more play in the hub. The torque is just a little tighter than hand tight. This Allen head bolt needs to be torqued firmly. If the hub bolt fell off, then your wheel falls off. I forgot to show you that I installed new brake wear sensors. You can't see them, but they're there. Well, that's pretty much it. This job was definitely worthwhile. The steering is much tighter, the car feels much firmer, and all the rattles and clunks you get when you put on the brakes or go around a sharp corner or a small bump are gone. The car feels like new, so it's definitely worth your while. I think the tasks do-it-yourselfers have the most challenge with is removing the bushings from the lower control arm and installing the bushings back into the lower control arm, and the removal of the ball joint from the spindle and then putting a new ball joint back into the spindle. But these aren't too bad if you use the tools and methods I showed you. One of the fun things about running these old Mercedes and maintaining them is the encounters you have with fellow enthusiasts. One fellow loaned me the spring compressor. Another guy told me the technique for knocking the ball joint out of the spindle. And there's lots of people making videos, and I wanted to do my part in showing people how to maintain the cars that benefited so much from your others out there. All right, thanks folks, bye.